City of Northglenn, Channel 8, keeping you informed of events in your community.
All right, I'd like to call the regular city council meeting to order. Joanna, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Downing.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dodge.
Here.
Councilmember Snetzinger. Here. Councilmember Mullica.
Here.
Councilmember Sowers.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Becky Brown will be absent. Councilmember Whitman.
Here.
Councilmember Escabel.
Here.
Thank you. Would you stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda are items either for addition or deletion, and we have one deletion under resolutions for CR 24. And that is for the Public Works Department vehicle purchases. And David will reschedule this March 14th. Okay, with that, does council have any other additions or deletions? Okay, with that, we have presentations of Northglenn Arts and Humanities. Michael? How are you?
I'm good. Mayor Downing, City Council. My name is Michael Stricker, and I'm the director of the Northglenn Arts and Humanities Foundation, and I am also the Cultural Programs and Senior Center Supervisor for the city. Thank you for having me here tonight. Because of our strong partnership and our shared goals with the Northglenn City Council, the NAHF has been dedicated towards ensuring that Northglenn is a regional arts destination. The per capita funds are an essential funding source for the extensive programming and services supported by the NHF. The NHF board has 10 members, one of which is here tonight. Rosie Garner's back there joining us tonight. Also, City Council Liaison Carol Dodge, and myself as the director. The following programs were supported by the city per capita funds through the NAHF in 2015. The Northglenn Youth Theater, Missoula Children's Theater, Northglenn Players, the Summer Concert Series, the Summer Movie Series, the A Cappella Concert Series, and Northglenn's Art on Parade Sculpture on Loan program, and the People's Choice Sculpture Award. Celebrating its 21st anniversary, the award-winning Northglenn Youth Theater presented 3 fully mounted productions with 115 youth participating and 3,999 in attendance. Missoula Children's Theater is hired throughout the world, and Northglenn celebrated its 27th year of hosting them in 2015. Youth auditioned on a Monday and performed the following Saturday. 121 youth performed with 1,121 attendees spread out over only 4 performances. In its 4th year, Northglenn Players, our adult acting program, attracted 1,174 people to the 2 fully mounted productions in 2015. The annual Summer Concert Series provides free outdoor music featuring 6 concerts in the park on Wednesday evenings and saw approximately 2,490 attendees. Our first full series of summer movies was attended by 1,575 people. The series is free and is held every Friday night in August. The most recent Art on Parade People's Choice Award was given to Florida artist Don Gialinella for his sculpture Bison. The sculpture will be installed at a to-be-determined location in 2016. Winning sculptures are purchased by the NAHF and then gifted to the city of Northglenn for its permanent collection, which is now valued at nearly $500,000, we're very proud to say. NAHF also commits over $4,000 per year to maintain the city collection, which includes the Veterans Memorial. It's worth noting, with the expansion of the city's community engagement department through the addition of special events like Pirate Fest and ongoing events like July 4th, Cultural Programs has been an integral collaborator through design and build services, talent booking and sourcing, prop and set usage, and event personnel. The Scientific and Cultural Facilities District, or SCFD, grants over $40 million to arts and science organizations in the Denver metro area every year. The Colorado Business Committee for the Arts reported that the $47.3 million distributed by the SCFD in 2013 created $1.85 billion in economic activity. This includes job creation, attendance, school outreach, hitting a restaurant before the show, and various other activity. The NAHF, in partnership with the city's Cultural Programs Department, is a part of that story. We bring hundreds and sometimes thousands of people each week to the city through our programs. You can bet that those patrons are eating at our restaurants, shopping at our stores, and leaving Northglenn with a positive experience. The NAHF was awarded $98,280 by the SCFD in 2015. That constitutes the second highest award in all of Adams County. The Northglenn Arts and Humanities Foundation have 5 main sources of income: the SCFD, fundraising events, donations, other grant sources such as the Colorado Creates Grant, and the per capita funds. The per capita funds are directly responsible for the NAHF being able to submit for SCFD funds. All rental revenue, ticket sales, and registration fees generated by these programs go directly to the city. Not only does the NAHF provide all of the programming and services that I have presented, but is also responsible for the upkeep of the sculpture collection, any future monumental sculpture purchase such as the promenade and future RTD stop, and any new cultural programming. The Northglenn Arts and Humanities Foundation believes that partnerships such as ours are a valued community asset. We look forward to building upon our past success in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Michael? Sure, Kim.
Michael, are you going to have the annual report available on the city's website or the NAHF website or anything? We didn't have a link for one, and I think that's great information for our public to have.
I can certainly make
access
it.
to.
Absolutely, yeah. This information, and I can provide other information if necessary as well.
Okay, I just think it's great that we let our residents know, and since we don't get many who actually watch or listen to our council meetings, I think it's really good information, so thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? No? Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Next is public invited to be heard, 5 minutes per speaker. Statements shall be related to city business and limited to matters of community concern or interest. Is there anyone who would like to speak to council for up to 5 minutes? Yes. Now, is this concerning any kind of a public hearing? Because we're not hearing statements concerning, okay, come on up. Sorry, I didn't put that caveat in there
That's okay.
a minute ago.
So I'm Hannah Mullen. I'm with Congressman Perlmutter's office, and I just wanted to give you a real quick update, if that's okay.
Great.
So, okay, great. So we actually have just finalized all of our academy appointments for the year, and I wanted to let you know, first of all, that we had a kid from Northglenn who received an appointment to the United States Naval Academy.
Great.
So he's due to go in July, and we wish him the best of luck and all of that, but that's the first thing I wanted to let you all know about tonight. The next thing is on March 11th, we're doing a senior resource fair. So we do 2 of these a year, typically around enrollment periods and also around tax season. So this one will be March 11th, which is a Friday from 10 a.m. to noon, and it'll be at the Thornton Rec Center on Colorado Boulevard. And then a couple of days later, we're going to be doing a telephone town hall. It'll be a state of the district, and so it's March 15th, and it's from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night. If any of you are interested in participating or want to get the call, just let me know. I can get you signed up, or you can just call our office. Happy to do that. And then the final thing is that we're doing a government in the grocery. We're still waiting to get the location sorted out, but it's on March 6th, and it'll be from 10 a.m. to noon. And I can send you all the info once we have the location set as well. So those are just a couple of updates. And then lastly, we have, every year we do a congressional art competition for high school students in our district. This year it'll be in May, and it's going to be, the reception itself will be May 6th at Red Rocks Community College in Lakewood. So just some stuff that's happened in the spring.
Very busy.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thanks.
All right. Anyone else want to speak to council for up to 5 minutes? Okay, seeing no one approach us, next we have the consent agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, please open the vote.
The vote is open. I'll close that vote, and the consent agenda passes unanimously.
Okay, next we'll move to resolutions. Joanna?
The first one is CR 23, a resolution adopting a Parks and Recreation Advisory Board fee waiver policy for the city of Northglenn, Colorado.
Second.
David?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This first resolution is regarding the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board approval of a fee waiver policy earlier this year, in fact, in January. It came to the staff's attention that the last time this happened was in February of 1988. There's been minor changes back then and a few minor changes recently. So we're here to discuss any questions you have on those. Amanda's here to answer your questions and ultimately look for an approval resolution approving the fee waiver changes.
Thank you. Discussion? Comments? Please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and CR 23 passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next is CR 25.
A resolution approving an agreement between the City of Northglenn and In Situ Form Technologies LLC for the 2016 Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Program.
Second.
David?
Council members, this is our annual sanitary sewer rehabilitation program, which involves basically lining certain portions of the sanitary sewer that have been deemed insufficient in structural integrity. So lining is the best option to repair those lines. In your memo, you've got a whole list of those locations. It should be very little impact to the neighborhoods. And again, this is in line with what we do every year.
Okay, thank you. Discussion? Please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and CR 25 passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next, we will move to discussion items. The first one is 112th Avenue North Metro Station betterments. Brooke?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I wanted to bring forward to you two items that was brought up in previous conversations and study sessions with Council last year regarding some of the treatments and improvements for the 112th station. So the two issues that had been previously discussed that we went back and talked to the RTD staff and RRP, who is the contractor, excuse me, was the treatment of the wall that's where the station landing is, and also the treatment of the columns for what are the canopy areas. In the early breakout sessions that we had with RTD and RRP was a question of whether or not we wanted to wrap the columns, which are now currently square, steel girder looking, into a rounded sleeved column. And so what we did is we went to our RTD and said, hey, can we get some preliminary estimates on this so that we can determine whether or not we have a desire to do that. The second one is on the treatment of the wall. There were some concerns that the treatment that was being done at the station was different than other stations along the line. What we found out is that this fractured fin, which is your first exhibit, is actually being used uniformly across all of the stations as it is right now. So with that, we said, well, what else have you got? And we asked them to put together what the options are that they have available for enhanced treatments. So in both of these situations, the wrapped columns in a cylinder form, which was intended to resemble a tree, because the canopy itself is going to look like a tree, we got some preliminary pricing. Now, one of the challenges that we have is that RRP is a large organization, and to do something as small as this requires a lot of effort on their part. And before we went too far along, we wanted to touch base with council and find out if either of these two options are something you're interested in pursuing. What that means is that if you do have an interest in pursuing these, the costs are likely going to go up because these are very preliminary estimates, and we would be getting construction bid estimate pricing moving forward. So I would anticipate probably a 30 to 40% price increase from what you see for these options if we were to pursue them. The last thing I just wanted to mention is that also identified on here are future art locations. That's something that typically we're going to look at probably a year to a year and a half from now. And what happens is that RTD sets aside a certain amount of money for each station to do some art, depending upon whether or not there's enough in their contingency left over. So we'll be working in the future toward figuring out what that is. The only reason for depicting that on the plan was to show you what is and isn't going to be treated with the fractured fin wall treatment. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions or comments.
Questions?
So the fractured fin is below the surface of the station, right?
Correct.
So the only people that see it really are just people passing by, even the people on the train can't see it, correct?
It'll be facing the parking lot.
No, it'll be facing
Yeah.
the park.
So this it's hard to get this to scale.
Yeah.
If you blow it up on your screen, it'll
So
look
we're
much
looking at
nicer.
the back end of the
Right.
platform.
So this is facing the parking lot, and the image on attachment 1, the lower image, is actually the pattern in which that's going to look like along that wall. And this is the same pattern that's going to be applied to all the other stations. So if you want to upgrade to that, we have attachment 2, which has all these different treatments, which if you notice, some of them don't look that much different, but they're somewhat limited to what types of treatments are available. And then in the memo, it outlines these options with a price per square foot and an estimated cost based off of where we are today.
And option B, sorry,
Go ahead.
option B doesn't look any different than the fractured fin.
It's a wider spacing, and I think it's a higher relief, so, but I would agree. And by the way, option B is free.
But
Looks real good now.
Do we, go ahead. Go ahead.
We discussed the polls last year, and did we give you any idea? I don't remember what we, as far as the rounded or,
I think that what the concern was is to see if there was anything we could do. Because as a base, we were trying to negotiate whether or not the rounded column was not a betterment, in other words, on our dime.
oh, okay.
And so we were trying to figure out whether or not we could leverage that, and the answer was no. So we then said, okay, well, tell us how much. And so we have this detail that kind of shows this sort of half-round circle. The reason for the half-round is because it has to attach to the electrical conduit, and so it's designed that way. But the idea here is that if we were to go with a round column, we would have it painted or treated so as to look like a tree trunk. And then one other thing I just want to mention that does not show up very well at all on this rendering because of the color resolution is that if you notice up here, there's a rectangle. It's kind of a dark green. That's actually going to be the color of the canopy, and it's going to be transparent. So if you know, like at a hockey arena, you have that glass shield. It's actually Lexan. It's a similar material that they're going to put up here, and it's going to be tinted green so as to kind of fulfill that tree effect. The problem is that these renderings just don't do it justice because of the resolution.
And the railings on the stairs have no significance in this, am I correct?
That's correct. I mean, we have also talked with them about the railings, and this is what's going on as standard for everywhere else along the line. If we want to change the railings, it would likely be a betterment, and we can also ask about that as well if you'd like.
Okay, I'm done, sorry.
No, you're fine. I have two questions. The first one is, do we know what the other cities are doing in regards to any betterments to their stations along this line?
As of right now, no one else has requested betterments.
Okay.
What happened is that each station went through a similar exercise where we went through, where we had like a little design charrette and we asked about the theme. Thornton went with the mid-century retro. If you remember the old gas stations that had the sort of big pitched angled canopy awnings, that sort of atomic atomic style. They went with that theme largely, except for Eastlake, where they went with the more agricultural, historical farm look to it. So it looks like the old depot, train depot effect. But as far as I know, none of what's being proposed is beyond a betterment.
And then my second question is in regards to the treatment of the poles and whatnot, over time, who's responsible for the maintenance of those if the treatment starts to fade or whatnot? Does the betterment stay, or would RTD be responsible for keeping the betterment to that standard, or would Northglenn incur additional costs to try to ensure that that betterment stays intact? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I will say that what I do believe is the case is that they would be responsible. However, when we get toward the end, we have a maintenance agreement, and part of that maintenance agreement is tied to whether or not the art displays and other elements are maintained by us. For instance, some of the stations in the actual canopy area, you'll see there's a clear plastic that's proposed, or a clear see-through panel. Some stations actually put in artwork that gets changed out over time, and that's something that we negotiate later on down the road. But as far as I know, the actual betterments themselves would be maintained by them, but I'll clarify that.
Anyone else? Comments? Yes.
So we get one shot at this because we get one station. So I'm all for betterments. Unfortunately, on the walls, I can't see the difference in the finishes that you're showing. Like we're saying, the pictures are so awful, so it's hard to see. So I can't really tell the difference of what the betterment would look like. But I am definitely for the rounded poles to look like trees. I mean, the whole thing is a great idea. The tree nature theme. Why would you not go with rounded poles? With a copper finish, sorry, that's even more expensive, but I think it would look awesome. And I did want to add that artwork will also be being provided in part by the NAHF in the future too. They have it in their agenda that's part of their plan. So we'll, I'm sure, have some great artwork provided by them too. But I'm all for the betterments. So.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Brooke, I didn't see in the pictures any ADA requirement or visual. Is there going to be a ramp coming from somewhere?
Yes, this will all be ADA compliant. I think we have a site development plan coming forward under final development plan moving forward with Plan Commission here in the next couple months, and we'll be covering all the accessibility and everything else. This will be ADA accessible from all points.
Thank you.
I'm right in line with Carol. I mean, the fractured fin base or the option B, really, I would rather go with option B because I like the thicker and it's free. It really doesn't. It's really not any different than anything else. And the rounded columns. I mean, that's what I like.
Yeah, I like the rounded columns myself. I think that's great. I'm not sure if I like the copper or the other better. It's hard, when you look at these, so.
What we'll do is we'll go back to the team, to the RRP team, and ask them to provide some better renderings of what it will actually look like and get some final pricing. The big thing I didn't want to do is to go through that exercise and have them spend that time and money and then come back to us and say, hey, look, you wanted us to do this and now you're saying no. So we wanted to first get in front of you and just give you a heads up and say, here's what we need to do to move forward if that's what you'd like.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there grant funding options for any of this work, for the betterments? Available? No. Okay.
For art, there's some,
yeah.
but that's it.
Yeah, I just thought for this.
And RTD has a fund also
Right.
for art, so.
I believe it's $75,000 per station that they set aside, but it's based off whether or not it's part of their contingency, and it's whether or not there's money left in the contingency, whether they do that or not. So.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I'm good
Yes.
with going to option 2. There's no difference between them. My only concern would be graffiti removal. And if there's would be a difference in how effective we would be able to get graffiti off of any of these bubbly designs.
Sure. I can find out about that.
Okay.
I remember that Brenda Tierney had brought this up before, is that I believe that they use a special treatment
Okay.
on the surfaces that help with the graffiti removal, but I'm not sure, but I'll definitely look into that.
Yeah, and I would go with the rounded columns as well.
Okay.
My only question is, where are we gonna find the additional 80,000 to pay for these would be my next question.
Sure. And I think what we would have is we have time between now and when this gets done. So we'd probably likely come back to you later this spring, or probably sometime in spring or early summer with some final pricing for this. But once again, at that point, we'll then figure out how to pay for it as well.
Anyone else? Thank you so much.
Okay, so just so I know, for general consensus, the wrapped columns, and then other than I heard option B as being pursued for the wall treatment, is there any other comments on the wall treatment?
I would just like some more details on it. I think that we can get some more details and maybe better pictures. That would help my decision.
Okay, so there would be some interest in pursuing an enhanced wall treatment as well?
Possibly.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Next, David, recycling.
Well, unfortunately, we've had a tremendous drop in commodity pricing. It's generally those things fall in line with the price of oil, which has resulted in the second month in a row where our recycling has resulted in a tipping fee at the recycling plant in excess of what it would cost to go to the landfill. This last month, we were paying $16 and some change to bring our recycled materials to waste management down by I-70, as opposed to $11 a ton bringing our refuse over to Commerce City. So I just wanted to bring that to council's attention and see if there's any comments or concerns and any direction.
Comments? I just, the program is a great program, and we put a lot of energy and time into it, so I don't want it to go away, but we have to kind of look at the fees and the pricing and monitor it, I think, so.
My feeling is that it's okay this year. I'm okay with funding it and revisit it at budget time and see where it stands then. It's kind of a year-to-year thing and see how the markets are doing. But it's the right thing to do. Recycling is the right thing to do. I don't want the group of seventh graders coming in here and saying, you better recycle, because they're right. I think they're right. So I'm all for covering it this year and seeing what happens next year.
Is that consensus with council?
Well, I think maybe come back in at least in another 3 months or so, because if the fees have been rising every month. So I'm kind of, I don't want it to go away, but I want to monitor it.
I don't think my opinion will change in another 3 months. I think that to me, it just, something morally seems wrong to put something in a recycling container and then send it to the landfill.
Right.
And so, I don't know if, I'm kind of in agreement with Carol that I think that let's write it out this year. I think that maybe something that I was going to ask staff to do or see what council thought about it was see what, does this mean that we need to maybe increase, the cost maybe by $2 or $3 per month or something to cover this fluctuation or whatnot. But I just can't consciously say, put stuff in a recycling container and we're going to take it to the landfill. So
just to clarify, there's no cost to recycling right now.
Right.
that's what I'm saying. I think it's something that we're going to have to look at if the cost is going up.
Yeah, it does cost to recycle right now.
Well, but it doesn't cost the resident. Does the resident pay a fee to
No.
recycling?
The resident pays a flat fee of $12 a month, or $12.50.
Yeah, I agree that it's the right thing to do. We need to be recycling. And if we end up having to pay for the cost of that, it's still in the best interest of our community to do that. So I say we need to keep it up and look at it later, like Carol and Kyle said, maybe during budgeting session to see if we need to pass some costs on to our residents. But I just think that it's the right thing to do, and I wouldn't want to see it shut down, especially after years and even late last year and this year, all of our push for recycling and telling people they need to recycle, and then now we're finding out, oh, gee, you're recycling too much. And so I think that's a mixed message if we now say, oh, never mind, we're going to stop that. And so I say just keep going with it how it is.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm in agreement.
All right, so at budget time, we can revisit it.
Okay, good enough.
All right, thank you very much. All right, I'll now recess the regular council meeting and bring to order the marijuana licensing board. Joanna, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Downing,
Here?
Mayor Pro Tem Dodge. Here. Councilmember Snetzinger. Here. Councilmember Mollica.
Here?
Councilmember Sowers.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Becky Brown is absent. Councilmember Whitman.
Here.
Councilmember Escabel.
Here.
Thank you. Next is the approval of minutes from January.
Move to approve?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and the minutes of the January 25th, 2016 meeting are approved as presented.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the public hearing for a new retail marijuana business license application, Washington Point LLC, doing business as Grow House, Northglenn. I will now open the public hearing on the application for a new retail marijuana store license by Washington Point Management LLC, doing business as Grow House Northglenn, proposed to be located at 11919 Washington Street, Northglenn, Colorado. The Northglenn City Council, acting as the local licensing authority, pursuant to Section 18-16-5 and 18-16-7 of the Northglenn Municipal Code, has jurisdiction to conduct this hearing under the Colorado Retail Marijuana Code, found at Title 12, Article 43.4 of the Colorado Revised Statutes, and also under the provisions of Article 16 of Chapter 18 of the city's municipal code. The procedure to be followed in this case will be as follows. City staff will provide a brief summary of the matter. The licensee or the licensee's legal counsel will present any evidence in support of the application, and any other persons in support of the application may testify. Any persons opposing the application may then testify. The applicant may then submit any rebuttal testimony. All witnesses will be placed under oath by the city clerk and may be cross-examined by any party, counsel for any party, or the members of city council. Are there any objections to the jurisdiction of the city council or to the form or substance of these proceedings? Seeing none, Mr. Hoffman, would you proceed, please?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. This is an application for a new retail license. The licensee, or the proposed licensee, has the burden of proof to show that there is essentially a necessity, if you will, for a new license. And so under the Northglenn ordinance, you are to look at other retail marijuana establishments located in or near the premises under consideration, and other pertinent matters affecting the qualifications. In other words, the ordinance authorizes you to look at whether or not there's a need in the neighborhood. And you can take into account other factors. Your ordinance specifically asks you now to look at whether there's an undue concentration of other retail marijuana stores in the neighborhood, whether this will cause an increase in traffic congestion, a shortage of available parking, or other demonstrable impacts caused by this particular business being located at the proposed location. You also certainly have to take into account the character of the applicant. You have in your packet the preliminary findings that were sent out to the applicant as your ordinance requires. And based on the preliminary findings and report, there was nothing in those findings that suggested there was anything related to the character or the qualifications of the applicant. So the primary basis for this is ultimately whether the applicant can demonstrate to you that the license is needed in Northglenn.
Thank you. Before we move further on this, I'd like to know who's going to be testifying in this case, and Joanna will swear you in. So whoever is here that wants to speak either for or against, if you would stand up, and Joanna will swear you in. So,
So raise your right hand. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right. Are you, is the licensee, or are you the licensee?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, would you like to come forward? Did you bring counsel with you or anybody to?
It's just me, ma'am. I am representing, I'm the licensee and representing.
Okay.
We have a few members of our staff that could potentially provide rebuttal testimony should that seem necessary.
So why don't you have them stand up so anyone that wants to speak here for or against, we can have Joanna go ahead and swear them in. They don't have to testify, but it's just easier to do it now.
Very well.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
You'll raise your right hands, please. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, would you like to present any evidence in support of the application?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, members of council, town staff, thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Craig Clark. I am the sole owner of Grow House Northglenn. I was born and raised in Colorado. Went to CU both for undergraduate and my law school. I do have a law degree from CU and I'm licensed to practice law in the state of Colorado. Additionally, I served in the Marine Corps and Marine Corps Reserve from 2002 to 2014. And professionally, beyond being a judge advocate in the Marine Corps, I've worked in real estate development. I run pillows.com, which is a retail business that sells pillows online. So that's my retail background. And I now own 4 dispensaries as well under the Grow House brand. We have dispensaries open in Fraser, Colorado, Central City, Colorado, Netherland, Colorado, and Gunnison, Colorado. So this would be our 5th dispensary that we'll be opening. From a real estate standpoint, there's common ownership between Grow House Northglenn and 3 National Forests LLC, which is the property owner of 11919 Washington Street. In other words, I own the property and also and am developing it, and also am applying for the license to have in my name. Our company has 3 core values that I think are important to consider when evaluating our application. Those are compliance, community, and culture. This industry is a strictly regulated industry, and we embrace that. We think compliance is critical. I think it protects the industry, it protects our communities, it protects the individuals, and it just makes us stronger. So that's a primary focus of ours, is strict compliance with the law. Community, that's our second one. We directly look to embrace the community within which we're in. We hear out local businesses, we hear out the citizenry. We try to adapt our business practices to meet their needs and any concerns they might have. We're very open to any problems people might have, receptive to try to address them, and really want to be a good neighbor. Once a month in all our stores, we do some sort of charitable fundraising where a portion of sales goes to charity. We're doing a drive in our store right now up in Fraser for the trails. The town brought us to us. We thought it was a great idea. We're raising money directly in the store for that. Now, those are just some examples of things we work on. And finally, we really go for a positive educational culture in our stores and keeping a really vibe and an open vibe and something where it can be very informative and instructive, and we're open with our customers. So that's a little bit about us. Now, the desires of the neighborhood and how this could potentially improve the neighborhood. The first thing that we've done to show evidence of the desires of the neighborhood, I'm going to enter this into evidence with the city clerk, is we, at our location, so this is the actual location of the dispensary on the property, collected 100 signatures in support of having a dispensary at this location. These are people who physically set site on our property, and then they self-affirmed whether or not they were residents of the city of Northglenn as well. But they had some sort of business.
Are they all Northglenn residents?
Matt?
Are they all Northglenn residents?
No, ma'am, they aren't all Northglenn residents. Approximately about half of them were, and they said yes or no whether they were. That was a self-affirmation that we didn't independently verify.
Okay.
So that's our first level, and that was physically on the site.
Joanna, would you like me to enter this, hand this to you now?
We have a question
So
up here.
Craig, I'm sorry,
Absolutely.
tell me how you did that, because I'm a resident of Northglenn. Why didn't you invite me to your powwow on your site? So I'm just wondering how you actually did that, that's all.
So we took, this site is there's a car wash on the site. So to get people to come speak with our petition takers, one of our staff members, Bobby Gibson, we put free car wash when he was out there. People would drive up to talk to him, and then whether they would sign it or not, they'd be given a free car wash. And it was essentially, here's the attention grab to stop by and talk to our guy, and then he'd give them 5 minutes or 10 minutes worth of a car wash, whether or not they'd sign it. We had about 15 people who declined to sign out of the 100 that signed it. Just for transparency, they all got car washes too. That was our attention effort, to try to get them to come and visit, talk with Bobby on the site.
Okay, thank you.
That's how we got folks to sign that. Bobby also went around to a few local businesses and whatnot, and the businesses didn't necessarily want to sign a petition formally as a business and take a formal position, but people in those businesses did. So I believe a couple of those signatures also came from, within a half-mile radius of just talking to people. So that's how we went about primarily showing the desires of the neighborhood as a direct on-site testimony and people that were in support of having a dispensary at that location. And then in terms of further benefits to the community as a whole, we see this as bringing a much better use to that site. Right now we have about 0.8 acres, half a car wash, half undeveloped and really unkept in the prior ownership. And the car wash, it's gotten run down a little bit. We're bringing it up as well. And so we see we're going to take an undeveloped, unkept piece of land and fully work and have started to work with in preliminary meetings with the town staff and planning and community development to bring a beautiful building that's in compliance on that site that matches Northglenn's design guidelines, that works. We met with the police and the fire representatives, that meets all those standards, and much better, beautiful look. I think it'll also improve traffic flow through there. Right now you have traffic kind of not flowing properly and a lack of parking spots with the post office next door. We're adding more parking to the back of that, so there'll be additional parking that's appropriate both for the car wash and for the dispensary. So I think the site overall, from a real estate standpoint, will improve significantly in terms of visibility for the city of Northglenn, which is somewhat of an eyesore right now. So that's our intent, is to make a much more nicely and well-developed lot. So I do think it'll bring an extremely positive impact to that site. And with that, that's all I have for my opening remarks. Thank you for your time, and of course, I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Okay, are there any questions?
How can you tell who's a yes and who's a no on here?
So the petition was designed such that if you support having a dispensary there, you sign the petition. The people that didn't support having it declined.
Did not sign.
Did not sign.
Okay.
And the Y or the N is only if you're a city of
Right,
Northglenn
that's what I
resident.
was looking at it.
Yes, sir.
At first I thought that for or against, but it's yes or no, you live in Northglenn.
Yes, sir.
So do we have any idea how many people declined?
15 declined.
15.
Yes, ma'am.
And do we have that here somewhere too? Or
They just declined.
They just declined.
That's testimony that I'm offering from administering, or as the executive, administering the survey and talking to my staff members who took the survey.
Any other questions? Yes.
I go to that post office every day. Every day. We have a small business. I mail things daily. It is a nightmare.
Yes, ma'am.
Explain to me how adding your facility there is going to improve it, because I see people now with that added amenity driving through the post office even faster in a very dangerous post office where you have to back out of your spaces. Are you going to have some type of division between the post office and your area? Or explain ingress and egress to me as you see it, and address that problem at the post office for me.
So right now, well, I believe in talking to planning development and working with our architect that we could not block that drive-through portion off because it's a shared driveway on the south side of our parcel, which the post office has an easement for. So, I guess from an easement legal standpoint, post office traffic is using our exit, our entrance and exit that falls on the property that I own. We're going to open up the front of that lane on this side of the car wash a little bit more because people do come in and circuit through the car wash into the post office area. But there'll be and then we're going to create some more parking spots on the northwest section of our parcel to hopefully keep all of our traffic and all of the people that are also potentially, we have people that park all over the car wash area also to go to the post office. So we're hoping to isolate all of the dispensary traffic to the north side of that parcel, and anyone who is, done with the car wash and working, they'll be over in our parking lot, which will be, at this side of the car wash. The car wash will sort of serve as a natural divider. In addition, from the car wash to the, it would be the east, we're opening that up so it's wider, and there's not a transit there that is essentially someone driving through the last open bay of the car wash. So I think that's the best possible improvement. People that are visiting the dispensary would not be suited to drive through the car wash parking lot. Instead, they would exit, or they not through the post office parking lot. They would exit to the east in either of the two drives that we have, most likely the drive that's furthest to the north, then turn southbound onto Washington and go to the U-turn right there. Because even coming out of the post office, you can't make that left turn anymore. That I believe was gotten rid of a decade ago or so. 5 or 10 years ago is what I was reading in the history when you used to be able to make a left turn out of there. So we're isolating the traffic, I believe, of that frequents the car wash and the dispensary as far from the post office as we can, and making clearer parking spots there, which I think is an added benefit, and will keep that traffic to the extent possible that's for the dispensary between the car wash and the dispensary, with the car wash dividing from the post office. So I think that's the best solution there.
And I see that as there still is no keeping people from driving into the post office from Albertsons or off of Washington and cutting right through the post office to visit your facility or the car wash. I mean, people do it now to go to the car wash. I just think it's an additional amount of traffic through an already super congested area. When I pull out of there a lot and onto Washington, depends the time of day, but when it's busy, you have to sit there just to pull out because it's backed up from Sylvia all the way to 120th.
Okay.
Because that is a really major intersection there. So I have concerns about that.
Right in line with that, my concern is that you indicated, they can go to the far lane and then make the U-turn to go around. I know myself, I use the post office also quite a bit. You have to wait, number one, if you want to go into the far lane to make the U-turn, you are stopping traffic from coming out from the post office or the car wash because you cannot get across. People will not allow you to get across Washington heading south when they're coming and turning off of 120th. So I have a major concern about the traffic issues.
And my thoughts would be that the traffic is a reality of a decision that was made to stop the left turn and allow a U-turn there. What we'll do is, and this is, a commitment that we would make to the city, is we'll engage, whatever it takes, if it's a formal traffic study we need to engage in and get it done, if that's a condition you want to put on the license, that's something we'll do. Because we do not want to make people, for both business reasons, we want it to be a convenient place to stop, so more traffic comes in there for our business, both the car wash and the dispensary. And then secondarily, we want to be good neighbors and contribute to the community. And, I think based on traffic counts and knowing volume of dispensaries in similar locations that have traffic counts along this line, there's about 24,000 cars that drive on Washington a day. We'll have we could have up 5 to 6 patrons parking in our lot at a time, and this is more colloquial based on kind of industry groups that I've worked with. And so that would be our contribution to an increased number of cars, and that's something we'd absolutely work to mitigate. And, you know, I'd commit to work with the town staff to find the best possible solution to address those concerns, because I think both as a good neighbor and as a business, we're incentivized, we're aligned in terms of our goal and wanting to make that a more equitable spot. At the same token, I'd say that spot's also been considered for another fast food restaurant, and they would have an equal contribution. I mean, it's going to get developed at some point. I mean, it's a very busy street that's a vacant, almost a half an acre, and right now you have a licensee and a very willing owner who are all one and have the most creativity possible to do everything it takes to mitigate the traffic and make sure that we make the situation better if possible. I mean, if the town staff recommends to me we have better signage for exiting, we block a portion of it so you can't transit from the dispensary through the car wash into the post office, we'd be open to all those things. I mean, we could keep that, there's 2 entrances to the lot. We could keep the entrance that is to the most north as only for the dispensary and make it so you can't transit to the post office if the town staff recommended that, it complied with ordinances and whatnot. All I can tell you is I kind of leave that to the expertise of the town staff, listen to them, my architects or traffic study or whatever we're required to do, and then come up with the best possible solution. Just having done some real estate development, those are some of the ideas that are going through my mind.
Okay, all right.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, and as you know, that's a lot of traffic going there, and we're very concerned. Any other, yes?
I just want to support my colleagues. I, too, went by there today, and I see it as a nightmare, traffic nightmare. I don't think that it, the information presented now, it looks like a nightmare for
Corey?
that particular area.
Okay. Corey?
I want to make sure that when council is considering traffic impacts, it's traffic impacts caused by the marijuana business. It has to be unique to the marijuana business as opposed to the development of the property. So when council is considering this, it has to be based on the impact caused by that type of business as compared to, for example, a fast food business or a retail business of some other type. So it has to be some disproportionate impact.
Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, Kyle?
Mayor? So the question I have is, are there any unique products that you offer which other dispensaries do not offer at this time? Is there anything unique that you sell at your dispensary that you can't find in another dispensary down the street?
Yes, I believe we do. Our model is different than, say, Native Roots, which would be a close-by dispensary. We do not have our own cultivation. We buy wholesale only, and this model's worked for us in all of our locations. So we have, in each of the markets we're in, the widest selection of edibles, of flower from different producers and whatnot. I mean, we have a real wide range from very top shelf products to more affordable products, and are very transparent with our customers about, where all those products lie, what their effects are, their benefits, and some of the benefits are more expensive premium product to lower products. So I do believe we consistently, compared to all our competitors, offer a much wider variety.
And so I understand, I know, and I know that you said that where your other locations are, and it sounds like a lot of them are in some mountain towns, some smaller mountain towns, and so this might be your first venture into a large metropolitan area. And so I understand that in those small mountain towns, you might, offer things that other dispensaries don't, but I'm asking, and specifically here in Northglenn or in the Denver metro area, will you be offering anything that couldn't be found at another dispensary?
Yes, for example, this is probably the closest example. We have a relationship with BMC, or Boulder Marijuana Company, which produces about 10 pounds a month. That's consistently our top shelf brand. That's not something that's found in any other dispensary in the city of Northglenn. That's a specific example. We bring in products from THT, which is a producer down by Colorado Boulevard that's not in Northglenn currently, and those are both flower products. And then in terms of edible, I'd say our variety is about 30 to 40% higher than the other stores we've identified in this market specifically. So I do feel like we provide a much larger variety, and those stores are primarily tied. This is just based on my observations and visiting the stores for competition and market research, are primarily tied to their own cultivations, so they're selling a lot of the product that they grew themselves, whereas we're bringing in a bunch of different brands. We work with Julie and Marley's brand, and that's not in the Northglenn market right now as well. That's another brand. Willie Nelson's, that's another one we're working on, possibly rolling out. That may happen be in one store in the Northglenn market, I forget, but we'll roll that out as well. But I really can't stress enough that because under our business model, we're not tied to our own cultivation, that allows us to buy the best product. That allows us, if a grow has a pesticide issue or a bad issue or anything, we will not deal with them. We're not tied only to our own cultivation in terms of financial stability. We can buy the best product on the market and make sure our customers are receiving the best product. And that's a core part of our model, that we do not have our own cultivations.
Kim?
Corey? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I have several comments. First, and this will be for Corey, I just want to clarify, I thought that state law, there's a requirement in state law that a large portion of materials have to come from themselves.
Medical, that's medical.
Only medical, okay, thank you. So my first question is, you mentioned as you rattled off the stores that you currently have open, 4 or 5 of them, yet in your application there's a long list and there are only 2 that are shown as open. Can you tell me the difference between the list that you rattled off of 4 or 5 and what you submitted in your application?
Yes, ma'am. Since we submitted our application, the Gunnison and Central City stores have opened. Those opened in late 2015. We are also in process of opening stores in Pagosa Springs, and these have state licenses but have not yet gone through local license approval. Pagosa Springs, Grand County near Grand Lake, in Trinidad, and in, I believe that's it. I might be one short, but those ones that we try to list whether they're active store open on that exhibit to the attachment or not. The 2 significant changes are we've received local licensing in Gunnison and in Central City since that time, and have those stores open.
Okay, thank you. So far, you have not presented any evidence to me indicating that there's an actual need for your product. So at this point, I just don't believe that we have that need, because you haven't demonstrated anything to us this evening that shows that we need that. You did a petition. The petition is not for that area. It wasn't even Northglenn specific. I think telling people, gee, come get a free car wash. Oh, and by the way, do this. That bothers me a little bit. So I just wanted to make those points, and I appreciate you explaining the difference in your list on this. But at this point, I just don't see any evidence of a need for your product in right now.
Joe?
Kim already presented my question, so.
Oh, okay. Anyone else want to? Did you?
I just wanted to clarify, so the car wash is going to stay and your proposed structure is going to be on the far north side of that?
Yes, ma'am.
I guess I was unaware of this. So the car wash is going to stay an active car wash, and then on top of that, the dispensary will be on that northern portion that I see here on the map?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Kim?
Yeah, sorry, I did have one other one that I looked on the wrong page for. So when I looked at your building schematics, you have entrances for medical, you have an entrance and exit for medical as well as retail. Your application only said retail.
Yeah, the town asked us to clarify that, and we had submitted additional materials. We decided not to do any sort of medical at all in this location. In fact, in any of our business operations since we originally started applying, and did not submit a medical application. So perhaps we're missing our drawing that revised the floor plan based on solely being recreational, but it is solely recreational.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone here opposing the application? All right. Yeah, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. You're opposing?
I would just like to make some comments.
Okay, so what we need to do is have you get sworn in. Come on.
If you'll raise your right hand, do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Mayor and council, my name is Sally Adam. I live on Plum Drive, like kind of behind
Right?
the mayor's home. We've been in that home for 49 years, and I agree wholeheartedly with the council member who said that the gentleman did not demonstrate a valid need for another one, particularly since, as I recall, there is a dispensary just about 4 blocks south of that location in the Malley Heights Shopping Center. And also, the predominant area around that location is it's a little small shopping center. The area completely around that is all residential. And I don't know that that's a good fit for the neighborhood. I think the traffic comments, I try to cross Washington coming out of that driveway, and I can't tell you how many times I've come about that far away from being T-boned because somebody thinks that that green light coming out of there is their right to turn. And I'm coming out of the shopping center now, and I'm very cautious when I cross Washington Street because I wait to see whether that traffic taking a left onto southbound Washington is going to allow me to cross that intersection. Most times they do not, or they cut in front of me. They're not going to wait for me, who I'm assuming have the right of way. They do not yield to oncoming traffic. I think the traffic situation will be bizarre. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like? Yes, please come. Well, you have to come forward and get sworn in.
If that gentleman has a comment too, maybe they get sworn in at the same
You want
time.
to, is there anyone else that wishes to speak? I mean, we can get sworn in all at the same time. Okay, all righty.
So if you'll raise your right hands, do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, sir.
Thank you. And it's just a short comment. I've listened to the board and I've listened to the applicant for the license. And you know, I agree with you and I agree with everybody that talks about that traffic problem at the post office. I've used that post office for the last 20 years. It's a problem that Northglenn should try to solve regardless if there's a marijuana place next to that car wash. I mean, it's a terrible problem. There's a lot of chances trying to, like you say, trying to get out, get to the left lane to make the U-turn to go back on north, or you get out and you get stuck in the right lane, you gotta go through the alley, through the back of the shopping center to get out to I-20. It's a problem anyway. It sounded to me like this gentleman was interested in doing a traffic study and doing whatever he could to try to accommodate better egress and access to that post office. And so I would support that. If he's willing to do that, I'd support the license.
Okay, and could you give us your name, please?
My name's William Miller.
Thank you. Okay. So you're kind of on the fence as far as, you know, you could support it, but right now you're...
I'm not on the fence. I would support the license if in fact there was something done about the traffic flow. But Northglen's got a problem there whether there's a marijuana place there or not.
Right.
I mean, that's a terrible situation there. So,
All right. Thank
I mean,
you.
it sounded to me like he was willing to do something about that to try to correct the problem.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Adams.
I'm Mr. Adam, Chester Adam, 11913 Quan Drive. I've been in this town for 50, well, I'll be in the first week of July, 50 years. Sally's my wife. The gentleman over here, and I'm bad on names, so I'll just say the gentleman, hit it on the nose. That is the most horrible traffic condition I can possibly believe. I don't know whether you ever checked with the police department or not, but they would probably say that that probably is the worst intersection in Northglenn for accidents. And I've been coming through there for 50 years. The other thing I'd like to comment on is that why, W-H-Y, do we have to have another marijuana shop? we have, I believe, 4 right now. Now, there is something to, I would have to think of zoning that would control this. But if we don't control it now, when is it ever going to be controlled for a city of, excuse the figures, used to be 35,000, I'm sure it is increased some sense. I don't think we need another marijuana shop any more than we need an X-rated theater. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition of the application? Does council have any other questions or comments at this point before I go back?
Can I?
Yes.
I'm wondering, are we allowed to ask David a question
Sure,
regarding
you
it?
can, sure.
So the post office is a federal facility. What do we actually control as far as ingress, egress there? Is there really any control over that from the city?
If there's accident data that supports it, I suppose we could have them change some of the traffic configuration. I'd have to go look and see what the lot size is. They may not even have, I'm guessing it's probably 1/4 of an acre, something like that. So I don't know if they have the room to expand and modify the traffic facility there. And I can look into this in the planning department tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you. Kyle?
I guess, and this is a question for Corey. Corey, hypothetically, how does that work to pass a license contingently, or do you postpone it for if, say, we would want to do a traffic study, or if we wanted to try to do a comparison of the products offered at different dispensaries?
There were several questions in there.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna in terms of the approval, you could approve it with the condition that they conduct a traffic study. That would be an approval, and then they would have to operate it in conformance with whatever the traffic study said, subject to city review. That's option number 1. Option number 2 would be to continue it, request that they do a traffic study. They certainly wouldn't have any obligation to do so, and continue it to a date certain when that traffic study could be completed, evaluated at that point. Again, I caution you that the traffic issue has to be kind of linked to the retail marijuana store as opposed to any other use, and so that makes this a little bit tricky. And then the other question is about the variety. And the city's ordinance has room for you to evaluate whether that is the type of need that is required in the city. So certainly, if you found that the evidence that this provided a variety that wasn't found elsewhere, I would suggest there's probably competent evidence in the record that could say this is different. By contrast, you also have evidence in the record that suggests that this may not be much different than any other marijuana store. And so I think that's why you get to make the decision. You get to weigh the evidence of whether this is meeting a need based on the testimony, or is just another marijuana store that isn't adding something based on the testimony. You have evidence of both.
Do you have any other?
That was my only
Okay.
question.
Kim, did you have something or no?
Nope.
Okay, anyone else? All right, would the applicant like to rebut any of the testimony or comments? Oh, you had it.
Yes, ma'am. We'd call Bobby Gibson to the stand, or to the
All right.
give testimony
Okay.
about the survey, what the free car wash was all about, what people's reactions were, and whatnot.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Bobby Gibson. I took the survey for Grow House's location on Washington. First of all, I'd like to say that most of the people didn't even see the sign for the free car wash. It was something that I approached every single person that came to the car wash and spoke with them a little bit about. Many people denied the money, but overall, the feeling from the people is very positive. I know a lot of the residents or a lot of the people who signed weren't from Northglenn, but they were people who frequented the area and came through on a daily basis. I just think it's overall, the whole petition and everybody that came by had a very positive idea for it. So.
Thank you. anyone else who would like to speak? Yes.
When did they run the survey through a residential neighborhood?
I didn't run through the residential neighborhood.
Who did?
Oh, there's, in our document, I can answer that. February 8th is what it looks like here, is when they, and through February 20,
The
Second,
the
at least on
petition
here.
was taken at the car wash. It wasn't walked
Right.
around the neighborhood.
right, they went to the car wash.
At the car wash?
Correct.
Mhm.
Gotta get my car washed more often.
I have to ask
Ma'am,
them, do you?
ma'am, if you could please come up to the microphone for us?
My voice usually carries pretty
And
well.
we, first of all, is it okay with
Yeah, it's
mayor
fine.
and council, and if you could identify yourself, because the record can't pick up who you are, and so we need.
I'm Sally Adam, I live on Plum Drive. I'd like to know if the council feels that 115 people is a fair sampling of the neighborhood. I don't know how many people are residents within, I assume this is Ward 2.
Yeah.
Okay, how many residents do we have in Ward 2?
Wow. That's a good one.
Thank you.
It's evenly split between the city of, what, 36,000 people?
37.
37,000 people?
So do you feel that?
Yeah, so anyway,
115
it's a quarter of our, but this is pretty typical of different surveys that are brought to us.
Do you think that's a fair sampling?
It's pretty typical, though, of what we receive.
But maybe not on an issue as important as this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now, since I'm back to oppositions, and is there anyone else who wants to speak before we go back to rebuttal? Okay, now, is there anyone else that wants to speak to the residents' concerns? The applicant is, do you want to say anything else before?
Yes, ma'am, I'd like to offer my more about that.
Sure, come on up. Okay.
First, Madam Mayor, town staff, members of council, thank you again for your time. I'm going to make three important points in rebuttal. First is with respect to me as the investor, second is traffic, and then third is to the burden of proof. Right now before you, you have someone who is very community-oriented that wants to invest in this community and better the community. To that end, we purchased the car wash, which has become an eyesore, and have started improving it mechanically already for $510,000. That's a direct investment into property in the city. And we're willing to make a great, larger, further investment in building out that property with a very beautiful building that will look great there and is a good use for it. You also have an investor who's extremely flexible when concerns, and this moves me into traffic, are brought up by the town staff, by the council as a whole. That's something we're here to tackle. We want to make it better. And my experience, at least in working with developers, is not every developer or builder is like that. But we are, and I am specifically. I own the property 100%. And so I believe you have an opportunity today to further development of that property in a very positive manner that improves traffic flow, that engages best practices from the experts who know about traffic, whether it's getting a formal traffic study, whether it's ordering us to do further consultation with planning, and so we get this right. I think this is a great opportunity to make the situation better, and I am the person to help do that, the private entity, as part of bringing this in. And you know, that's my commitment to you, is we're not here just to open a dispensary. We want to build a great building. We're buying the property too, and make that better. And so as it goes to traffic, we'll do what it takes to make it the best possible situation coming in and out of there. If that's limiting traffic to one of the driveways so there's not a transit possibility through the post office, we'll do that. And I have that flexibility solely because I both own the property and am the licensee. And if I was just a tenant, maybe wouldn't have that flexibility to that development. I have the flexibility to do what we need to in that car wash and make it better getting through there. And so I think This is your best shot. At some point, that property is going to get developed, and it's zoned for retail. And this, with me as the investor and owner of that, is your best shot to do it right and get the best possible traffic situation coming out of there. And to that end, this property was under contract prior to my getting it, and I had the backup offer, and they didn't get it done, their development, whatever they're trying to do. They were trying to put a fast food restaurant in there. That's going to bring more transitory traffic through there than a dispensary ever would, at least in my experience in terms of traffic counts. So I believe that compared to what that is zoned to be used for, we would have no greater impact and would have, in fact, have a less impact than a lot of other uses like a fast food property that might go in there. I also, again, can't commit to you enough that I'm here to do it right, and if that means getting a traffic study, putting in best practices, I'll do that. Finally, the burden of proof before I close. I think we carried the burden of proof with respect to the needs of the neighborhood. We stood, and you heard from Bobby, on there and talked to people coming to the car wash on the specific site. I mean, the exact location where this is going to be. So we got testimony from the source, from where the location of the dispensary is going to be put. And 100 people out of 115 that Bobby talked to said, we do want this. And quite a few of those are citizens of Northglenn. And that shows a specific need. The evidence that's presented that we don't want it largely relates to traffic, and then 2, in general, a concern against marijuana as a whole. I believe that those 100 signatures outweigh the opposition testimony that's come in today. And in addition, this is the last point I'm going to make on the burden of proof, we were required to pay for and give notice to 750 people within, I believe it was a half-mile radius, and the city clerk could better certify exactly what it was. And we haven't heard from someone who came as a result of that notice against it. Yet we have 100 affirmative signatures saying this is needed. All right. In conclusion, I would encourage you to vote yes on this license. It is zoned for it. We've shown a need of those 100 people, and I've already shown a demonstrated willingness to invest in this community already by purchasing this property and starting to improve that car wash. That commitment will continue. If you're not willing to do that, I would secondarily, in the alternative, encourage you to approve it with a condition that we do a traffic study and implement best practices as suggested or required by the Planning and Development Department. That improves the site, that addresses your traffic concerns, and it makes it a better site and a better community for all. And that's one of our core values, is the community. And finally, if you're not willing to do alternative 1 or 2, I would encourage you to continue this to allow us to do that traffic study and bring additional evidence before you. I think we've met our burden of proof, but if you don't feel like we have, give us another chance either by putting that condition on the license or allowing us to bring additional evidence at a future hearing. Madam Mayor, members of council, city staff, thank you again for your time, and thank you for your hard work both in the development department and in working on our application in terms of processing it.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone that would like to ask him any questions, or?
I have
Yes.
comments.
Okay.
First of all, I don't think a fast food restaurant would go there anyway, because I think we would have more of an issue with fast food restaurant and traffic than we would with your facility. What I suggest is that we continue this until you come up with a plan for how traffic will be handled in the area.
Or to work with staff?
However you do
However we word it, okay.
But I would like to see a plan on how we deal with the traffic.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is that a motion, or is that a?
Yeah, that's, sure.
Okay, is there a second for this motion to continue?
I mean, it's the worst thing that I hate to do is just continue it and roll it down the hill. But before we even throw a contingency on approving it or anything, I want to see what you're going to do with traffic.
If there is a motion for a continuance, I would recommend you do it to a date certain. So figure out a day, for example, 60 days out, roughly, and we can figure
I
out what
didn't
that-
get a second yet, Corey. So-
Right.
Okay. Is any more discussion then, since that, yes, I'm sorry.
So can I throw a point out before we vote on that? Okay.
There hasn't been a second
I
yet.
need a second, is all we need. Well, you know what, I'll give it a second so we can have discussion. We don't have to do anything more than that, so, okay.
I have to refute that this petition is basis of need. When I am petitioned by people and I go to King Soopers and they hit me up, I mean, they want a lot of information from me and they want my birth date and they want my address and they want my phone number. This is not anywhere near it. These people on here don't have any ownership besides that they signed it and they wrote a name. I don't know their birthdays. I don't know for sure that they're a resident. So for me, this is really not proof that 100 people said yes. And especially the age issue is big with me. So I just wanted to point that out, that I would refute that as evidence of need.
Is there, now we have a motion and a second on the floor to continue this?
And I would throw out if the 60 days out is April 25th is the second meeting in April, so that's the fourth Monday.
Is that a reasonable time to do a study? And
I don't even know where they are in the planning department through DRC. There's potential water quality issues and a whole host of other things with the building department, new building as well. So, it's hard for me to answer because I was unaware that they're even in the planning department.
60 days good for you?
Yes, sir. 60 days is good for us, and we are in the planning department. We've had our initial consultation meeting and are working on formal design plans, water quality, and all those issues discussed. A traffic study was not required as part of that, but that's something that we are willing to do and will bring in. And in 60 days, we can both meet with planning for a second consultation meeting and hire outside expertise on the traffic study and getting that going so we can present that evidence. I also understand that there's concerns about us meeting the burden of proof for showing necessity or the needs of the neighborhood. That's something we'd be happy to address in 60 days as well and further address your concerns about the quality of our evidence today.
Okay.
And I guess to the point of the need, I realize that there's a limited number of cities that you can choose, but obviously when you were doing your evaluation and determining that Northglenn was the place to be, you had to have come up with something more than this 100 signatures because you got these after you purchased the property. So present the need that you saw to buy in Northglenn and move here. I guess that's what I would want to see.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, please open the vote on the continuation of this hearing to April 25th.
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and the motion to continue the hearing on the new retail marijuana business license application filed by Washington Point Management, LLC, to April 25th, 2016, passes with 3 no votes. The no votes cast by Mayor Pro Tem Dodge, Councilmembers Snetzinger, and Escabel.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor,
Okay.
members of council, city
Thank
staff.
you. All right. The next hearing we have is the transfer of ownership application, Sherry Hackett and Be Good Ventures. So should I read the procedures over again?
Yeah, because it's a different procedure because
Okay,
it's a transfer.
all right. I will now open the hearing on the application for transfer of ownership of a 20% interest of Be Good Ventures LLC to Sherry Hackett for the premises located at 11450 Cherokee Street, Units A4 through A7, Northglenn, Colorado 80234. The Northglenn City Council, acting as a local licensing authority, has jurisdiction to conduct this hearing pursuant to sections 18-14-19 and 18-16-21 of the Northglenn Municipal Code. The procedure to be followed in this case will be as follows. City staff will provide a brief summary of the matter. Sherry Hackett will present any evidence in support of the application for a transfer of ownership, and any other persons in support of the application may testify. Any persons opposing the application may then testify. The applicant may then submit any rebuttal testimony. All witnesses will be placed under oath by the city clerk and may be cross-examined by any party, counsel for any party, or the members of city council. Are there any objections to the jurisdiction of the city council or to the form or substance of these proceedings? Seeing none, Mr. Hoffman, would you proceed?
Madam Mayor, members of council, this proceeding is much, much different than the hearing that you just had, because this is a transfer. The location exists. So you do not need to look at whether the needs and the desires of the neighborhood are currently being met. The only issue for your consideration tonight is whether the applicant for the transfer is eligible. So what you get to consider is basically whether Ms. Hackett qualifies under Northglenn Municipal Code 18-14-12 and 18-16-14, and the various criteria are set forth in your staff report. You can consider evidence you hear tonight. You're also entitled to consider evidence that has been provided to you previously, because this is in fact someone who has been before you previously. So that is all part of what you would consider. The only thing I would ask is, if you do consider something like that, make her aware of it when you ask the question so she knows what you're asking. And with that, it is again her burden of proof to show that she's qualified to hold the 20% interest in the license based on the criteria in the Northglenn Municipal Code.
Okay. Sherry? Okay, come on. Do you have anyone else with you that will be testifying with you? Maybe everybody can get sworn in at the same time, or are you the only one? Okay.
I would like to get sworn in.
Okay, sure. Okay. Anyone either opposing or for the application? Okay, there you go.
All right, if you'll raise your right hands. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Sherry Hackett. I have been the previous owner of Botanicare for the last 5 years. I have done very well, I think, in the city of Northglenn in keeping our community safe, being able to represent a good business practices. One of the things that was brought up as a concern was the fact that I did not divulge the court case that I was involved in. I was just going to go back real quickly and review, because we have a few new board members that weren't here originally. The reason that this all came to play was back in 2012. And this was a time when we had just originally opened the dispensary. We were trying to get it up and running, and to Kim's point, it was a medical dispensary back then, and so you had to grow your own. And so I was trying to do the appropriate thing and grow what we needed. The problem being is that there wasn't enough power in the building at that time. And so we were petitioning Xcel Energy to try to get power in order to try to grow enough to produce what we were selling at that time. We were unable to do that, and so we brought this to the state's attention and to the city of Northglenn's attention that we were not going to be able to hit 70-30 when our year was coming up. And at that time, we went before the state and explained to them, and I was part of the rulemaking back in when they did 1284. And so because of that, I was aware of a clause in the rules that said you could get a waiver if you could not produce or you had some kind of an issue. So I brought all of my information down to the state. They'd never had anybody ask for a waiver as of yet and didn't know what to do with that. The other problem that I had at that point was the department heads had just switched from Dan Hartman to Laura Harris. Laura Harris had only been on the Marijuana Enforcement Division for several weeks before I came to her, and she did not understand why anybody would need a waiver and couldn't understand any of the clauses that had to go with that. Louis Koski which is now the head of the Department of Revenue Marijuana Enforcement Division, was with her during this hearing. What they suggested that I do, rather than give me a waiver, they wanted me to withdraw my application, reapply, and go forth and try to reopen the business. I came to City Council here, explained to you what I needed, asked for the waiver. You guys said if the state will give me a waiver, you would give me a waiver. When the state did not give me the waiver, you had no other choice but to go with the same thing that the state had done. So at that point, they closed me and they gave me 2 hours to close. At that point, they came in and destroyed all the product, all the monies we had achieved up to then was all involved in the product, and so it all went away. And so it made it a financial burden to try to keep the business going. And if any of you have ever run a small business, it is very difficult to run a business when you do not have income coming in. Unfortunately, the state had me approved in 3 days. The city of Northglenn did not get me approved, and the only thing that was waiting on the city of Northglenn was my CBI fingerprints and my background check through the state. I unfortunately, because of being a welder for 30 years, I do not have fingerprints. Well, not good ones. And so therefore, they kept getting rejected and sent back for, bigger fingerprints, palm print, electronic prints, all those kinds of things, which delayed the reopening of my dispensary. The other thing that delayed a lot of that was we had, unfortunately, a shooting in the Aurora Theater, which made a whole large number of people go out and get gun permits. The other thing that happened was my fingerprints got lost in that process. 8 months later is when I finally was able to reopen my company and get it back up and going. Well, during that 8 months, it was hard to make the rent and pay the bills. I was looking for other investors and other people to help me to be able to pay this rent and be able to keep the business up, ready to reopen again when it was time. During that time, Mr. Pfeiffer and I sat on a board for a marijuana, it was called Act for Colorado, and it was a board that we had sat on for a couple of years together. And he knew I was looking for investors and had been meeting with several investors. And he offered to me to loan me the money and hopefully that we could be able to possibly merge our two companies. At that point, I decided that rather than work with more than one investor, we turned off those things and started working with Mr. Pfeiffer exclusively and borrowed the money to pay the rent and to keep things open. After that time, we kept trying to get open. This was in about November that I borrowed the money, the first week of November approximately. And we kept trying to negotiate and get to terms on our loan or the merger of the two companies. It came to around Christmas or shortly after Christmas, because we didn't get open until January, and we had sat down to have another meeting with Mr. Pfeiffer. And one of the concerns that we had brought up to him in our merger discussions was the fact that his dispensary is 200 feet from school. And at that point, the feds were sending out letters to everybody that were within 1,000 foot of a school. And so it was quite concerning for us to merge a company with somebody that had that type of an issue, and is he going to have to move his location to another location, and is that another burden that we're going to have to incur? Mr. Pfeiffer became very agitated at that meeting, did not want to continue our negotiations, and decided to quit all negotiating and asked me to return his money to him. I told him I would get it to him as fast as possible. About 6 weeks later, I found another investor, came up with the money and the terms to be able to pay him back his loan. When I presented this to him, he did not accept it and proceeded to take me to court. We've been in these court proceedings for several years, trying to resolve the issue and find out what was going on. He said he purchased the business. Now, during that time, one of the things he gave me was approximately $53,000 of a loan. And it trickled in. The first amount was about 22,000, then 5,000, so on and so forth. Also, at the end of January, after our negotiations had gone badly and ended, Mr. Pfeiffer then 1099'd me for $36,000 of $53,000 he had loaned me. And so therefore, I had to take that as income into my tax returns. We continued to fight this in court and try to come back to a resolution where I could pay the man his money back and be able to go forward. It didn't end up that way. In court, the judge decided that a text message was his contract and gave him 80% of my company and me 20% of all of the companies, Be Goods Ventures. I am appealing her decisions at this time and trying to fight this, which you know from previous hearings that we've had here. And I truly believe that I will win that. One of the things that happened after the judge had come up with a ruling on this was you had changed your ordinance in March, and I had taken possession of there are 7 units in this building. I had taken possession of the last 2 units, previously already renting the other 5 units. And you changed your ordinance to be 200 foot from a residential, where it was not that to begin with. And at that point, I was told by the judge not to do anything to hamper the business, not to tell anybody or say anything disparaging at all, to be able to keep the business and grow it to its best of its ability. And at that point, I came in here and I fought to keep the last 3 units of my building in order to grow CBD. Now, the reason I'm growing CBD plants is because I treat the elderly and children. Now, in that, I still to this day believe we need the whole building in order to produce that kind of product. Now, since all this has happened, Mr. Pfeiffer has fired me from my position, so I no longer have a job. I am now fighting to try to get my 20% ownership of this business in order to recoup some of my attorney costs, some of the other things that I have lost during this time. Since then, he has also denied all my unemployment. He has not paid me my last 2 paychecks. He has done everything in his power to try to stop anything going on. Now, beyond that, I don't want to say anything disparaging about him. I just wanted to give you all the facts, and because you felt like I did not tell you this information, I wanted to tell you everything that had happened. Now, to my character, I would like to go back and state, I grew up in this neighborhood. I went to Thornton High School. My family settled Thornton, Colorado. We've been here since it began. We have been in Northglenn. It is my city. My kids went to District 12. I now have an at-risk child that is in District 12. So I understand your concerns when it comes to drug abuse and children and how to protect them. My daughter, due to her parents having a meth lab in their house, using drugs during her whole pregnancy, she has autism and ADHD. I understand what it is to have children that are at risk and how to protect them. And for that, I really make sure that I do everything in my power to make sure that this marijuana business is everything that it can be to the people that need it for the medicine, to the community that it is around, to the city that it pays its tax dollars to help improve our city, because it's been a huge influx of money into this little tiny shut-in city. And so therefore, I am very proud of what we have done. I am very proud of City Council and all the times I've been before you to talk to you about all this new stuff and new industry that nobody understood before we got here, and that we are trying to do everything we can to make it the best that we can. So therefore, I would grandly appreciate you awarding me back my 20% ownership of this establishment.
All right. Questions of Sherry? Anyone have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Kim.
Okay, I noticed on the application, Sherry, that you indicated that you have not held a license before, so I was curious about why you said no.
Oh, it was previous to, I assumed that I already owned the application, and so therefore, it's hard to answer questions on a renewal that you would go back into.
Well, the question is, have you held a marijuana business license in any jurisdiction in the past? And you said no.
Okay.
So I was curious as to why that wasn't yes.
Because I had always answered it no, because when I had done the application previously, I'd never owned one other than in Northglenn. It's the only one I've ever owned, so that's why I answered it as no, because I never had. I did have the one in Northglenn, so I apologize if I answered that wrong.
And then as an applicant, your application is for Botanicare LLC rather than your name. So because I thought that they had changed the name of the business as well.
They did that after.
Okay, we approved it. Our resolution that approved the change was done November 2nd. Your application was received by the city clerk's office November 25th. So I'm just trying to make sure
The problem that I have in this is that they are making applications that are separate than mine, and they're not involving me in any of the applications, so I didn't know of the name change. I didn't know of anything because I have not been told that. So I was going off of the information that I did have when I did submit it. So I didn't know any different than it's Botanicare.
Okay, thank you.
So you indicated that you're no longer working for the business. So is this just, you're not going to be on site then or working at the business after you receive the 20%? Is this just a financial transfer?
I'm still doing the appeal process, so I'm hopeful that someday I will win that appeal and I'll be able to go back into the business and start working it. But at this time, I've been let go. And so I can own the business, I just am not allowed to work there.
And you're not allowed to work there?
Well, according to Mr. Pfeiffer, I would love to work there. It's not that I don't want to work there, it's just he has asked me to leave the facility.
So, and I guess, Corey, is this premature then, coming, or?
The
I'm just gonna, I'm
the only issue for the council tonight is whether Ms. Hackett qualifies for the 20% interest. And so you need to determine based on the evidence tonight and any representations that were made to you previously, whether or not she qualifies.
Okay. Are there any other questions before we? All right, thanks, Sherry.
Thank you.
Okay, now is there anyone here?
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
I just wanted to apologize to everybody because you all had felt like I had held something from you, and I wanted to apologize one more time. Thank you.
Is there anyone here that wishes to oppose the act? Yes.
Yes,
please come forward.
Wish to oppose.
And you've been sworn in, so
Yes.
Can you give us your name and?
My name is Chin Song. I live at 1423 West 111th Place here in Northglenn. My family owns a little over a dozen commercial properties in Colorado, specifically one in Federal Heights on 92nd and Pecos, Holiday Plaza. It's a shopping center. Ironically, we are the landlords for Be Good. They're probably surprised that I'm here. I've been asked to pretty much stay out of this, but we've invested something like $1,040,000 on this property for marijuana. We lease the property. We have had a long-standing, fantastic relationship with the city of Federal Heights. Back when they were considering marijuana, we were approached as a possible candidate location for a store. We had never, done this before. it's always been in our minds. A lot of people ask us, hey, can we have a dispensary? They want to pay a lot of money. Considering our relationship with Federal Heights, we thought, why not? So we began the discussions with them. I attended every...
With them, who's them, I'm sorry?
Sorry, the city council.
Of Federal Heights.
Federal Heights. So I began attending, well, I've had a relationship with them. I attended every council meeting pertaining to marijuana just to see where this was going. This was before the vote. So sometime along those lines, Federal Heights, and I could be wrong on the facts, but the Botanicare and Miss Hackett was brought up several times. I believe they consulted her, maybe even visited the facility to get some advice. And so I know they were somehow involved with Federal Heights in some manner during this whole process. So, and then fast forward to when the actual vote came through, we started looking for tenants, and there was plenty.
Excuse me, sir. Can you just tell us what Federal Heights has to do with a business license in Northglenn?
Yes, it has to do with my relationship with Miss Hackett.
Okay.
And I live in Northglenn, and I'm quite concerned. I have a unique relationship with both B Goods and Miss Hackett. Now, I've never met Miss Hackett, but that's where I'm going with this. So if you just bear with me, I can explain. And so I met the guys from B Goods sometime after the law was passed, and we signed an agreement to open a store there. And so we were going through the process, and at some point during my talks with the city and going through this process, it was brought to my attention that some consultants were raising some concerns and saying in a nice way, was basically saying that they were saying to me that B Goods were possibly crooks, and that I would be, that we would be taken advantage of, and that that's what was relayed to me during this process. Now, having invested...
Do you have some dates? Because I'm sorry, I'm having a really hard time following you, because the original business for the Hackett's was Botanicare and not Be
Yes.
Good. We only approved Be Good Ventures in Northglenn in November. So I'm
Right.
having a real hard time following.
So I'm sorry. So a lot of
Hackett and
this
and all these
happened in Federal Heights, and I understand that seems to have nothing to do with you with Northglenn, but it relates to Ms. Hackett and
Okay,
what
can you
what
speak
she's
directly
asking.
to the opposition for the application?
So basically, my point is that it was brought to my attention that there was a court case and that there was some fraud involved with individuals that I'm doing business with, that we're doing business with. And it seemed to me that had been cleared up. There had been a judgment. I can see that the store is no longer belonging to Ms. Hackett, which makes me very happy, because I do not want to be involved with somebody who was charged or has a court case of some sort stating that she has been fraudulent. But today I see that there is a hearing to transfer ownership to Ms. Hackett, and that concerns me, and that is my point.
And it's 20% of the business.
So does she have
Per
any
the court
ownership now?
Per the court case.
Because I would argue that moral character is pretty important, and I would be very hesitant to do business with somebody that has shown lack of, and that is my point, and that is
Okay.
what I'd like to state.
Okay, that's what we were trying to get to.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I'm sorry, yes,
No, it's fine, it's fine.
We've been doing business with B Goods as we rented them a unit in Federal Heights, and that's how I am involved in this. I also live in Northglenn, and like I said, it's I'm sure you guys are doing your due diligence. I'm not against these kind of businesses as long as they're run by people doing it right. And I've had personal experience with this business, not the individual, but the business. A lot of embarrassment in Federal Heights. Like I said, we do business there. We've invested a lot of money in getting this going, and there was a lot of embarrassment. There were some things said, and it concerned me, and that's why I'm here, is because I'm extremely concerned, and I thought this was a done deal when the case was settled, but now that I see that it's not, and I'd like to make it known. You know, I live in Northglenn,
Okay.
and I don't want to see. I know.
Okay.
I would ask you to please look at the facts,
Okay.
and that's all I ask.
Marcy, did you, I didn't know if you had a
I don't
hand
have
up.
a question for him, I did, but I
Oh.
just had kind of some general questions.
Sure.
Again, not for you.
Oh,
though.
sorry.
So I guess I'm looking for some clarification in that the 20%, and Corey, maybe you should correct me on this. The court case ordered the 20% to begin with, correct? That was in that court case?
Yes, but then the court recognized later that any orders it entered had to be subject to the licensing authority, that it could not force a licensing authority to make findings about transfers.
Okay. And then from the standpoint of if this were approved for the 20%, I guess the question of whether or not Sherry could be involved in the day-to-day or how closely you're going to work, the concern I have is that the tension that's there, I just don't know how that impacts the business and decisions that are going to be made. But so maybe they can just speak to that.
They can certainly respond to those questions, but ultimately how they operate their business in terms of accommodating the 20% interest is really not the issue. The issue is whether she qualifies in the council's mind as the licensing authority as being eligible.
I have a question.
All right, Kyle.
With this, I guess from hearing what Sherry said, it's still in the appeals process. And so if we approve this 20% transfer, hypothetically, let's say that Sherry Winter appeals and regains control of the company, does she then come back to us for that remaining 80%, or?
It's going to depend on what the court order is. I mean, it's hard to speculate on what could happen in the future because courts can, for example, affirm a decision in its entirety. It can say, court, you made wrong findings in part. So there's no way of knowing what, if the Court of Appeals doesn't affirm, in other words, if they change the order, there's no way of knowing how they would. All I can tell you is that the court's order does, because it has to, defer to both this licensing authority and the state licensing authority to make findings under their licensing provisions. The court can't do that.
So this is potentially coming before us again?
There's really no way of knowing. I mean,
it's a possibility.
Absolutely. It's probably an equal possibility it's not.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Chin? Not at this point. Okay. All right. Is the applicant wanting to make any final statements? Jerry?
The only thing I'd like to say is that I appreciate everything that you guys have done. I look forward to working in Northglenn again. And like I said, this is my home. This is something I want to protect. And I really would appreciate the fact that you can allow me to at least have my 20%. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more discussion?
Can I make a motion?
Go ahead.
Oh,
Can
wait, wait, before, do we have nobody from Be Good here to testify?
Yes.
There is someone from Be Good here, but they're not obligated to testify.
Oh, they're not, okay.
And my hunch is that the court case may have something to do with whether or not they take a position at all.
Yes, do you want to speak?
I'd just like to inform you that
You have to be sworn in, no matter.
Up to the
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I can't tell you what I feel because the court has told me not to. but I can answer any questions that you ask, and I'm sworn to tell the truth. So I have to tell the truth. So you can ask me anything you want, but I can't volunteer anything.
Okay.
Pardon my...
Does anyone want to ask any questions at this point? Or we'll just...
Yeah, and I kind of take that back. I mean, if you can't talk about it because of your court case, I get it, and I don't want to ask any questions, so.
All right. Well, thank you for at least coming up and recognizing yourself. All right. Did you want to make a motion?
Can I just make a motion to approve the application, or do you want me to read the entire thing?
If you are making a motion to approve the application based on the sample language, then
Yes, based on the sample language.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? Please open the vote.
The vote is open. I'll close that vote, and the motion to direct the attorney for the authority to prepare a draft resolution for action on March 14th, 2016, approving the transfer of ownership application filed by Sherry Hackett pertaining to the medical and retail marijuana licenses held by Botanicare LLC doing business as Be Good, passes with one no vote. The no vote cast by Councilmember Snetzinger.
Thank you. Before we adjourn from the licensing board, I just want to make a clarification statement concerning Federal Heights. I do know that the entire council, minus maybe one person, actually took a tour, and they invited me to go with them to Botanicare when they were considering opening a medical marijuana license establishment. So that's why Federal Heights came over here and just took a tour to see how things were happening. And that was the only relationship, as far as I know, that they had with any other, with this business. So I just want to make it clear, because Federal Heights kept coming up, and it was the council wanted to tour a facility, and this seemed to be a facility that they chose. So I just wanted to make that statement. All right, so we are now adjourned from the Marijuana Licensing Board, and we will now reconvene the regular city council meeting, and we'll open up communications with Kim.
Okay, I'll just start with, earlier today, I sent all of council members some information regarding the low-income housing. Well, I'll wait just a minute. It's a little loud. Anyways, regarding the low-income housing tax credit that is available at the city or at the state level. And it's a current bill.
Jim, would you walk Sherry out to her car, please? Thank you.
So there's
Sorry, Kim.
That's okay. There's a House bill that has been presented to the state legislature that is going to extend the low-income housing tax credit until 2019. Right now, it's set to expire this year. So I sent some information. This is a tax credit that assists the private sector with building low-income housing and doing supportive services for homeless individuals. So I sent that to everybody, just trying to see if you all would be in support of that legislation and putting our name on a list of coalition members who are supporting that, as well as presenting it to the North Metro Chambers Business and Government Affairs for their support in that. It's my understanding that tomorrow morning at the Economic Development Council of Colorado's legislative committee that will be approving or recommending a support for their board as well. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out for y'all to see if there's any opposition to us providing support for that, not necessarily a resolution in support or anything, but certainly adding our names to the list of coalition members who support it. And that's just a list of a lot of different organizations, cities that are supporting this tax credit legislation.
And I mean, and it's very worthwhile tax, and they're just asking for an extension
right
to 2019, right? Yeah, I totally support it, so I don't know if anybody else have any.
Yeah, and I don't know if y'all had a chance to even look at it. It was.
Yeah, I did, yes.
I don't remember when I sent it out around noon or maybe even 2 o'clock. So it wasn't real timely for me to get it out earlier before the meeting, but.
No, that's fine.
So I threw that one out. And then the Parks and Rec Advisory Board met last week and looked at, they had the public hearing for the recreation programming, and looked at a couple of vendor applications and then presented the fee waiver tonight. So they're still plugging away. We don't get many people there. Maybe we need to have a marijuana hearing and we'll get some more folks to show up at the Parks and Rec Board meeting. I'm not real sure. But it's a good group of people still working there. And then something that has come up recently with the I-25 construction, I've been seeing the sound walls going up. And as you drive along I-25 on the southbound side, so west of I-25, you'll see the sound barriers going up, but then you'll see that there's a rather large area, probably I would say in some cases at least 20 feet between the sound barrier and the residence fencing. And in many of those cases, the residence fencing has come down and now it's up with like temporary construction fencing or anything like that. So yeah, I'm looking at it, I'm like, so what's happening with those residence fences there? And staff is aware of it. I mentioned it to David earlier and had talked to Brooke about it a couple of weeks ago, and CDOT should be responsible for replacing those. There appears to be some concern about what kind of replacements are happening and why the fences were even taken down to begin with. But just so that you know that I have been aware of that, and I'm trying to figure out to make sure that those residents aren't going to be negatively impacted and that they're going to get their fences back. Because it didn't quite look like it at this point, so I have that. And then something that I noticed on today when I was looking at different things, at the Urban Renewal Authority's meeting on February 10th, let me find it here and find out what it was. They approved, I believe, a business agreement, or at least talked about Community Center Drive street improvements. And in their memo, there was mention of doing street improvements on Community Center Drive and installing a median with landscaping and so forth. And I don't recall that coming to council for any input, so I just wanted to throw it out there to make sure everybody else was aware that this is apparently going on, and I don't know if maybe we can get some additional information.
And that's what I was going to just ask if David or Jill.
Because I was shocked to see this.
I was going to mention that they had got with a design person and stuff, but David can give us the history on it.
Yeah, I believe it's been brought to council before in the general sense in a plan view. It was modified slightly because the same landscape architect who was working on the 104th medians was hired to work on the landscaping on this particular project because the civil engineer didn't have that talent to do that. That new conceptual drawing will be coming back to council, I think, at the next study session.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, I hadn't thought that we had talked about having a median put in along that stretch, so I was just curious about that. I was going to ask for an update on it.
That was first brought to council in the sub-area transportation plan when we looked at the entire corridor from Huron Street to 120th.
Okay, thank you. And that's finally all. Thank you.
Thanks. Kyle?
The only thing I have, Mayor, is that Marcy and I are still preparing for our Ward 3 neighborhood meeting next month, so get ready.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, tonight I have 2 events have come to my attention that seem very exciting that I plan to partake in. Hopefully, schedule allows, is the Farmers Highland Canal cleanup on March 19th. I know we still have some time. It's from 8:30 to 11 a.m. and more than 100 volunteers are being requested. You can call Jenny Murphy or you can sign up online. And then the Citizens Police Academy starts March 2nd. So you should sign up by February 24th, which is 2 days away. Thank you.
Are you a member?
To the Police Academy?
Yeah.
I want to be.
Oh, you're gonna go through the class? Good for you.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Going back to Nura, they're still working on stuff over at the old Albertsons over there. They've got a couple of places locked in, a restaurant and a grocer, and they're still working on some other aspects over there. the guys over at
Here.
Green Solutions are working on trying to make some improvements to the Malley Heights Center over there, which, looking at what they have, I was pretty impressed. But they're still going through everything, trying to make the whole place there look a lot better. And then March 16th is Ward 2's ward meeting at M&O. Same night as the NERA retreat, but,
How are you going to handle that?
well, I'm only gonna go to one. So, anyways, so that's it for me.
Okay, I'll pass for now, so go ahead.
Yeah, I have nothing tonight.
So pretty cool thing happening for the Anythink Libraries. March is Space Month, and they have pretty much dedicated the entire month to having space activities. Stay tuned for some announcements about some NASA participation. And another thing that they're going to have is space music with a NASA rep on March 23rd, so that sounds kind of fun and something to partake in. You can get all the details on their website. It's a full page. There's at least one or two things going on every day of the week. To tag team on Kyle's comment, so the Ward 3 meeting is March 9th. It's at the Studio School, and I hope to see everybody there.
I don't have anything, Mayor.
Nothing? Okay. Joanna?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
David?
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
I've said enough.
All right then, okay. So next on the agenda is public invited to be heard, and I don't see any public. So we will adjourn into executive session pursuant to Section 4.5, Parent B of the City of Northglenn Home Rule Charter for the review of applications for any appointed position. Interviews and appointments shall be conducted at an open meeting. And number 2, pursuant to Section 4.5, Parent G of the City of Northglenn Home Rule Charter for negotiations concerning the potential acquisition of real property. I need a second, please.
Second.
Okay, please open the vote.
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and the motion to adjourn to executive session passes unanimously.